everyone. I had the absolute pleasure and honor of speaking to Kaillie Humphries today. You know who she is. She's the most decorated woman in bobsled. She's a 4-time Olympic medalist. She has 3 gold medals, 1 bronze medal. She's been on the international podium over 70 times. She has over 50 first place and gold medal finishes in various international competitions. She is an advocate for women in sports, for safety in sports. And she is a soon-to-be mama after a very long journey with IVF that she has shared so publicly. I couldn't have been more excited to talk to her about what it was like leaving Team Canada for Team USA and everything that happened during that time, how hard it is to make tough decisions, to make right decisions, that there's life after these tough moments, after adversity. And she just shares her story with such bravery and honesty. I really enjoyed our conversation. And I'm especially excited because I'm certain this woman is my spirit animal. We share a love of mini eggs. She's just so incredible. And I really know that you're going to enjoy this conversation. Everybody, Kaillie Humphries. Hi, Kaillie.
Hi.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
I am good. Thank you. I'm good. Thanks for making some time for me today.
Of course. My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. I see that you were live from your baby's nursery. You are very pregnant.
Yes. We're almost 38 weeks now, so it could be any day. We got a guaranteed end of 2 weeks date, but anytime between now and the next 2 weeks, it could happen. Nursery's not quite done. Close, but I figured baby sleeps with us in our room for the first couple months anyway, so it's fine. True. But yeah, chairs in, cribs in, everything's good to go. So
amazing. Look at that sneak peek. Well, that's exciting. I'm glad we got to sneak this in because I thought, oh my goodness, she's going to have this baby before we get to have this conversation. But thanks for making time for me today. I have to tell you, I knew that I had to have you on this show a few months ago. I mean, needless to say, I've been a fan for a long time, following your journey as an amazing athlete, as a badass woman. And, but a few months ago, it really sealed the deal for me. And I was like, this woman is my spirit animal for sure. When you posted a video, and you'll remember, I'm sure, of yourself on Instagram, you were dancing and singing in your kitchen. You weren't naked, but you weren't fully clothed, eating a big bag of mini eggs.
I love mini eggs. I go out and I buy like 4 bags because you only get them at Easter. Like, this is a jip. What if I want them at Christmas, But I love them.
I just love that they make the like 10-pound bags that are resealable now. Like, they just are asking for you to just dip your hand in, close it up, go back. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure those are the sizes that you're supposed to share with people, but in my opinion, they're just like personal snack size, large bags.
Yeah, they are. And especially when you can put it in your mouth with like some warm tea or warm milk and it like melts.
Oh yeah.
A little bit.
Yes.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah. Well, anyways, I was like, this is my person right here because I would love to dance around my kitchen in my underwear, singing and eating mini eggs. And I'm going to do it more often because you do it. So why not?
I'm so happy. Sometimes do what you got to do,
Exactly. I love it. I was out with some friends last week and I had to tell them that I was going to be speaking to you this week. And it's so funny because everyone knows exactly who you are, right? They know you, right? They're like, oh yeah, that's that badass bobsledder. She's got the hair and the tats and she's so amazing. And then you kind of see this pause and this look on their face where they go, yeah, she left Canada, didn't she? Right? She left Team Canada, went to Team USA. And then you could tell that people don't really know the story. And it was kind of consistent around the group, around the table. People didn't really know why. And we kind of chatted about it back and forth. And then one of my friends said, she goes, to work so hard as an Olympic athlete, to compete for your country the way that woman did, and then to feel the need to walk away from a country you love to go do something you love to do, tells me that woman had good reason to do so. And so I have to agree. I mean, you and I have chatted briefly and I've heard your story and I've done my research. I want to start there. I feel like that's maybe a very critical point of your entire life journey that we will go through today. But in 2019, I mean, let's set the stage for a second here. But in 2019, you're competing for Team Canada at this point. You had already won Canada 2 gold medals, a bronze medal. You were named the country's Athlete of the Year in 2014 over every other single female or male athlete. You had countless amounts of World Cup and World Championship titles. And you are very well known. You've achieved great success. And I guess it comes out, I mean, as someone, a Canadian reading the news, it comes out that you are leaving Team Canada to go to Team USA. Talk to me about that moment in your life.
I want to start by saying it wasn't an easy choice and it wasn't something that just happened overnight. I think that's a misconception where people just think, oh, she just up and left. And it was so easy for her and it looked so. It was a good long year that it took where I battled internally, externally with family and friends. I competed for Team Canada for 16 years. And as you said, I've been to the top of the Olympic podium twice within that, bronze medal, double world champion. It wasn't an easy decision. It wasn't something I took lightly. It was excruciatingly hard. But I also knew I had a responsibility to myself and to other female athletes. And if I couldn't stand up for what was right and safety within sport, who else was going to? And I had spoken to a lot of other women within bobsled who had gone through what I had gone through. And were fearful and were scared of what happened to them and how it altered their future and who they are. And I thought, well, I don't want to have that happen to me. And I also felt this huge responsibility. I've been gifted a lot throughout my career, and I recognize that. I also recognize that I am a leader within the sport, within the community, within our country. And I needed to stand up and say something to protect a future generation of young women within bobsled, that we would hold people accountable for their actions and that we weren't going to continue on with abuse, harassment, neglect, whether it be mental, physical, sexual. We weren't going to allow these things, this abuse of power and process, to continue. And if I couldn't do it, who else was going to? And so it was a lot of conversations. Unfortunately, what we see and what we've seen, and it's not just within Canada, you see it within the US. I know it exists around the world as well. And so that's where this wasn't just I'm just going to leave my country decision. This was something that I knew was going to impact my career, but other people around the world as well. And my hope, and my only hope, was that it empowers somebody else to stand up for themselves and to take themselves out of a dangerous situation. So in 2018, I had a brand new head coach. As athletes, we don't get to pick who our coaches are. We don't get to pick who our teammates are. Right. And you learn and develop skills. Sport's so great at this. I've had some of the world's best and most amazing coaches that have made me who I am. And unfortunately, I've seen the opposite side of that, where I got granted a coach who was verbally and mentally very abusive. And throughout the 2018 Olympic year, I was so focused on the Olympics and the end goal and trying to win a third gold medal for Team Canada and being the best I could be. It broke me down mentally, physically. There were times I feared for my physical safety. Again, I'm a female up against a 6'4", 250-pound ex-MMA fighter. And when he comes close to you, he touches you, he does stuff. You get to the point you're like, ooh, and you tense up. Any interaction, I'm crying on a regular basis. And I pride myself on being a fairly strong mental and physical female. And to get to the point where I didn't recognize myself 2 months before the games, I quit the sport. I asked our president, I said, send me home. I'm not having fun. I don't want to be here. Sport is fun for me. I enjoy the long hours in the gym and putting the best I have into and seeing what I can get out of myself and seeing if I can be the best in the world. And when that no longer was happening, I thought, well, why am I doing this? What am I doing this for? And yes, I'm doing it for my country, but I'm also doing it for myself. I'm doing it for other women. I'm trying to grow the sport and greater opportunities. And when I started to doubt who I was as a person, how I operated, when my self-esteem and my worth was questioned every single day and I was being made an example of, and I'm crying on a regular basis and I don't recognize and I didn't know where to go, I thought, I'm just leaving. I need to go home. Fortunately, I had amazing people behind me. There's 5 people, my start and strength coach, Felicia George. I had some amazing teammates that were like, okay, like we got this. Let's come up with a plan. Sounds good. Let's get you back on track. And we went through the Olympics. We got to the Olympic Games in 2018 and I had to take a hard stance on this coach is not going to speak to me. It was our head coach, but please have no interaction. Don't touch my equipment. Don't come around me. Don't talk to me. Don't even look in my direction. That's how bad it got. And in 16 years, in At that point, over 30 years of my life, I have never gotten to that point with a single person. But it was just so futile, and I was so fearful physically of my safety, and it getting to the point where I didn't know if I was going to get punched in the face and my jaw was going to get broken, something that this coach had done to fellow athletes in the past. And so for me, I needed to just stay away. And we went through the games. It was extremely successful. I'm so proud of what Felicia and I did in 2018 and earning that bronze medal. And then I come home and I'm processing everything. I work with a sports psych. I always have for most of my career. I find it very valuable. And in talking through and the feelings and where I was at and the loss that I felt just as a female, as an athlete, I was really confused. And so it was a very different Olympic experience for me. And not because I didn't win, I still got a medal. It was, I didn't recognize myself from that whole year. And looking back, I couldn't. There was no point I could have said, hold up, I'm going to stand up for my rights and I'm going to stand up for who I am. And you can't treat me this way. You can't talk to me this way. I need to say something. It was like, next race, next race, next race, get to the next one. Just forget about, move forward, try and figure out a different communication strategy. How do I, and so you're constantly in that, like, moving forward. The Olympics are coming. I have no time. I've worked 4, 8, 12 years of my life for this moment, and I got one shot. And so you don't get to be the victim. I don't get to sit there and play that victim mentality. And I never thought of myself that way. Post-Olympics, though, and in the debrief session, I realized something's really wrong here. And in speaking to multiple other athletes from multiple other countries who have worked with this coach, in knowing that if you can do that to me and you can diminish me as a person, as a female, as an athlete, if you can make me question all of who and what I am and what I've done, you can certainly do it to anybody who doesn't have 2 Olympic gold medals or multiple world championships, who doesn't have that backing in themselves. And I saw him do it to others, and I couldn't sit by. So I went to our high performance director. I went to the president of Bobsled Canada, and I said, hey, I don't feel safe in my environment. I just want a new coach. If you want to keep him on, great, no problem. If you guys think he's great, that's not my choice. Just give me somebody else to work with and be accountable to. I'll go to own the podium. I'll go to the Canadian Olympic Committee. Just give me somebody else I can be accountable to, because I can't move forward with this single person. And that's when I got kicked off the team. All my resources got pulled, all my funding, all my stipend, everything I had worked for. So I was no longer afforded a sports psychologist because that was paid for. That got taken away. Unless I was able to go to therapy with him specifically, and a therapist that they chose, that they felt comfortable with, unless I was going to divulge my feelings and everything I felt. And I had to agree to open up my history to him, somebody I felt very unsafe with. And I mentioned then there was no future for me there. And so the choice was somewhat made for me. I felt so heartbroken because it wasn't me leaving. It was, I got to make that ultimate call, but really the decision was, do I end my career? Am I being forced into retirement? Or am I going to go elsewhere? Because I don't have a future on this team anymore unless I'm willing to do something that I am not comfortable doing, but that could potentially harm me and have long-term effects. And so I chose not to do that. I didn't think it was right that somebody else could end my career. I've seen it happen to other athletes where, again, they're put in that ultimatum of choose your physical or mental safety or retire. You do what we say. It's that abusive power being the leaders, and in my opinion, I'm like, well, what makes you better? Yes, you're the head coach, but you don't have Olympic gold medals. You don't have world championship titles. So what makes you more knowledgeable in this sport than I do? How do you know how to drive better? How do you know how to coach? How do you know these positions? Because you're just an ex-athlete like I am. You're just older. So again, it was that feud. Yeah. And so as a female in a very male-dominated sport, and for most of my career, I have been told women can't drive. You're not strong enough. You're not fast enough. Women can't do all these things. And so to stand up for all those things, to race against the men and for men, to be a pioneer, help bring a second event for women within our sport, to showcase that we deserve equal medal opportunity with men, that I I couldn't go there. And so instead of letting them
Yeah.
end my career, instead of being forced into a retirement, an early retirement, I thought, well, I've got options and I'm going to utilize those options. And it was really hard. I did
Mhm.
file an abuse and harassment claim against the organization. That did not go the way that I thought it was going to go, but at the end of the day, it went the way that it needed to.
Yeah.
I was refused a release from Team Canada. I had to threaten to sue. I picked the largest amount I possibly could, 42 million. Sure. Did I think I was going to get it? No. And I would like to stipulate that throughout this process, there was $0 exchanged. I got nothing. I got everything taken away from me from Team Canada, and I had to start again from zero on Team USA. I lost all my sponsors, everything that I had when I left Team Canada. So again, it wasn't a decision that was taken lightly, and nor was it a decision where I took anything away.
Yeah.
I know that there's people that do believe that, you know, the Canadian government paid me for a long time to do my job, and how could I just up and give it to another country? And to that, I would state, I did my job and I got paid for it. And anybody that does a job, you're a TV host. You can't go to another show because
Right.
you got paid from the first one and you just have to never be a TV host again. I don't think so. And I look at other athletes. I look at Sidney Crosby. He doesn't play for a Canadian team. He does at the games, but he doesn't in the NHL.
Right.
And so when I look at other athletes, NFL, NHL, this is my job. This is my life. This is my profession. When I look at the situation I was put in and how the only option I had was to either give up and quit and allow them to win, or take back my power and go to where I'm wanted. And that's what I chose.
Yeah.
And so I reached out. At that point, I was living in the USA for multiple years. I'd been living in the USA since 2016. So I was still competing for Canada, living in the USA. And then come 2019, when I was refused a release from Canada, I had to take them to sport court. Um, and that internationally, it became a big problem because the hold that they had within our sport on me, without me being released from Team Canada, USA was going to accept me. By them refusing to release me, in essence, I was being held hostage, sport hostage. And you can't do that. That's against sport rights within sport court in Switzerland and all of the above. And it was literally the high performance director at the time came out in the media and said, "We don't want to compete against you. You're too competitive." And I thought, well, that's not my fault. You guys let me go.
You're too good. Yeah.
You're too good. We don't want to compete against you, but we're not going to let you go elsewhere either. And I'm like, you can't hold me hostage in my job. Like, that's legally not right. So we sued, we won. I got my release and I came over to Team USA. I know the Canadians aren't going to want to hear this, but it was the best decision I could have made in my entire life, because regardless, it didn't matter. I know the history, and I think some of it is really emotional for people when it comes to the Canada-US feud with hockey.
Mm.
And I 100% am aware of that. But at the end of the day, to me, it wouldn't have mattered if it was USA, Germany, Denmark, Austria. I had an opportunity to continue my career, something I had worked my entire life for. I had an opportunity to keep doing what I love to do, what I'm passionate about doing. And that's what I was fighting for. And that's what I won
Yeah.
when I came over to USA. And so for me, being now a dual citizen, but at the time, my grandfather was American. I grew up, you know, training and living and working in Canada, US, both the whole time. And so it wasn't a choice. I also don't see it as having to choose. I have love, and so much love, for the 16 years I had in Canada, and that will never go away in 100 million years. And they were some of the best times. Golden 2010, that was still my most favorite Olympics. Winning on home soil with Canadians, like, nothing will take that away, but I don't have to choose. My heart is big enough to love both. I love being an American and competing for the USA now, but I loved my time in Canada. And we grow as people. Yeah. We have kids. It doesn't mean we don't love our dog because we have kids now. It doesn't, like, why is there this choice that I have to make? Except for I had to pick a team to compete for, and I'm going to go where I'm wanted, where I'm respected, where I'm empowered to be the best version of myself. And I hope that everybody has that within them and that they make those choices. Even if it's going to a new school, moving to a new
Yeah.
city, if it's literally within their job, you have an opportunity to elevate yourself, please take it. Because that's what I feel, that it wasn't a choice I wanted to make, but a
You
choice
had
that I
to
was
make.
forced into
Yeah.
and I had to make, and I did it. And
Yeah.
I'm extremely happy that I did.
You tell that story. It's not story, it's your life, and you're so open about it and matter of fact, and that's very hard. Like, even listening to you tell that story, it gives me goosebumps, because I think the reality is, we can't all relate as having been Olympic athletes, but certainly many of us have been in situations where we had to make tough choices to leave situations, be it jobs or relationships or anything, and I don't want to diminish this situation down to the word toxic, but we'll use the word toxic, things that are not serving us. We have to make the tough choices to leave. And it's not always representative of, an entire country. You didn't leave Canada as a country and your love of the country. People don't leave jobs because they hate every single person in a company. Sometimes it's, one or two that ruin it for, for the whole country or the whole company. And the sad part is that a lot of people don't ever find it within him to make those big moves. Some people wait too long to make it. I mean, I would say it's never too late, but to be able to choose what's right and to do the right thing, of course the media didn't spin it that way back then. I mean, it's way more exciting to sell a story where you're going to chase fame and glory. But as when you think about it, there was not a lot of fame and glory by making the tough choices, by protecting yourself. And of course, Team USA, and arguably, Team USA's getting you, and they could have been like, well, I don't know, this woman could be a handful, she sticks up for herself, I don't know if we want to deal with this type, because those reputations follow. And so I think your ability to tell this story can resonate with people from all walks of life, in knowing that there is life after these tough choices, that there is life after sticking up for yourself. And I think everybody should know you're speaking up for safety in sport, for women in sport, did not end after you went. You still are a huge advocate for safety and women in sport. And we're seeing more and more women talk about that these days, more well-known athletes, professional athletes who are coming out and talking about, what it's like to be a woman in sport, mentally, physically. Your work continues in this regard. Yes.
Yeah. So I currently serve on the U.S. Center for Safe Sport Athlete Advisory Team. So we are actively working on trying to change sport culture within even the USA. And my fight for safety within sport in all aspects, whether it be mental, physical, sexual, it doesn't matter. Just that the fight for safety within sport continues to get better. I want to be an international, I'm working with our international IBSF too, as best I can, to make sure that the bobsled community is also at a much safer level for every athlete worldwide, because it's not something that I think any athlete should ever feel or fear, is that sporting environment. And they are. I know
Right.
women in our sport that still use certain favors to get certain equipment pieces, and we're in 2024.
Right.
They
My
will,
God.
yeah, and coaching
Yeah.
staff and different, like, we don't, as athletes, you don't get to pick that, but your goals and dreams, your life's work is always tested, but it's used, and in the wrong hands it's used to, with that power imbalance. But it can be used against you. If you don't do this, you don't get this. If you don't go here, and it's very manipulative, and we need that to stop.
Yeah.
And it's not even at the Olympic level. It exists at the Olympic level, unfortunately. And your top athletes can be made an example of. So just because you have Olympic medals doesn't mean it can't happen to you. Um, but it's happening at the grassroots level too. And unfortunately, we
Yeah.
have to change that. We need to make people more aware of what the definitions are, how to stand up for themselves, how to stand up for their teammates. When you see something, say something, all of the above, and to have checks and balances. We have US safe sport, and you got to do all of these checks and balances along the way. And hopefully it will transition. And I know it's not just me. There's so many athletes in Team Canada. You've got Alison Forsyth. You've got a lot of athletes that are really fighting, even in the Canadian side, to create. In the US, we have a separate entity. We have the US Center for Safe Sport, but in Canada, you don't. You don't have a separate safe sport.
Mm.
So unfortunately, when athletes do speak up, they're required to report to potentially directly to the people
Or harming
that are
them.
doing the bad things. And those people can or can't investigate. They get to choose the investigators. They get to choose what gets put in the media. They have media attaches. And as an athlete, I don't have any of
Right.
that. So you get to police themselves on Team Canada and sport. And unfortunately, that's a really hard position to be in, because a federation, if it's accused of doing anything wrong, gets to police itself. It gets to say who, what, where, when, why, and how we investigate this. And all the athlete can do is report it and hope they don't get kicked off the team.
Which just seems crazy in this day and age because I mean we've all heard of Olympic gymnastics and everything that happened there. The Canadian women's soccer team has been very vocal about some stuff. Not just equal pay, but we're talking about real fundamental challenges within the system. And you just feel like at this day and age, it's such a talked about topic. But I'll tell you, I was at my daughter's soccer game last weekend and all the parents were standing and watching our kids play. But behind us, there's a team warming up. And these are 10 and 11-year-old girls. And this coach, this man is yelling at these little girls. Don't you worry about what's happening on the other field. I don't care about other teams. All I care about is winning. And he's yelling at these little girls. He's like, fast. I forgot to mention it was freezing cold and pouring rain outside as well. So these little girls are running in the rain, soaking wet, and he's yelling at them. And I'm thinking, all that went through my mind was one, are these little girls capable of having a voice? And number two, what are parents doing about it? Parents are so worried about getting their kids on the teams that the last thing they want to do is speak up and risk getting them kicked off teams. I mean, the culture of rep sports and competitive sports and in this country, and I'm sure in other countries, is such that the parents are just as much on trial or being tested as their kids are to make these teams, and you don't want to say anything. And so I think there needs to be a certain level, and I know there's coaching certificates out there, they have to take courses, they have to be, but to hear that in this day and age at the top level in our country, in Canada, there is not a separate entity governing safety in our sports, to me is just, it's bananas. It almost seems ludicrous to a certain degree, and disappointing considering how far you think we might have come given all the things that have transpired in this country as of late in sports.
Power is very much in the favor of the NGB, the NSO, the national governing body, the National Sport Organization. Power is very much in their favor. And if you have great leaders, if you've got a great high performance director or president, you're great. They will hold
Right.
people accountable. And I've seen that. You see the right people making the right choices. An athlete,
Yeah.
Wrestling Canada, you make a claim, they investigate it, sexual abuse, he gets fired. Great, awesome. But you see it in my case, or you see it in ski racing, in other cases where then it gets covered up because, well, I hired this guy. And if he's doing these bad things to these athletes,
Yeah.
then where does that leave me? And can I get fired? And so then they protect themselves. And their system allows for it, unfortunately, because there
Yeah.
is no third party independent. And like I said, I'm not the only
Yeah.
one fighting for that. I'm not the only one that has a story either within the sports system. And so I want to be able to lend a voice and to be able to share my story, to say, hey, here's where the failings are, here's where the holes are in the system. Let's plug them. Let's change the system. Let's empower the people that are there. Allison Forsyth being one that knows how the system failed her and all of the above, and how can we change that to make it better for the 10 or 12-year-olds that don't know what's right or wrong, that don't know how to stand up for themselves yet, because they might not have had great coaches. This might be their first coach ever.
Right.
They don't know what
Yeah.
that system is, but it
Yeah.
definitely needs to change. So that's more of why I tell my story, is again that leadership and that responsibility on, it can happen to anybody anywhere. It's also empowering for me to know I didn't do anything wrong. I'm not also less of a person having gone through this. And the most important part is for people to know that there's still success on the other side. So regardless
Yes.
of, even within safety and sport, you make these hard choices like we talked about, you stand up for yourself. There can be success. It doesn't mean everything's over and it's the end of the world and I need to give up now. You still can move forward and you can still be successful. Going to 2022 in Beijing, it was so hard trying to make sure I got citizenship time, that I was competing without knowing I was ever going to make it to the 2022 games in those years leading up. I knew I was in the right place at the right time, but there is no guarantee in future. But I walked away with a gold
Yeah,
medal.
you did.
I got the opportunity. I was able to be extremely successful with a new team in a very short period of time, being in a very empowered situation. And so it's through hardship, and what can be really negative can also be something very positive. And so I don't want, especially young girls, to feel scared to say, hey, I don't feel right about this situation, or this person treats me this way, says this stuff, does this stuff. I want especially little girls in sport to know that sport is amazing and it offers so many unbelievable things. And I wouldn't change my career, even with all of,
The stuff.
the bad, but there was
Yes.
so much more good that has that I've gotten from
Yeah.
sport and from the people that I've met, that it really is only 1% of my story within my life. And it's a hard 1%. And I learned a lot, but it is only 1%, and it doesn't make me less than, and I did nothing to deserve it, but it just was a sucky situation that we have turned into a positive. So
And I think what you said, this idea of having life after, it's, we need more people to lead in that way. And I really think everyone is a leader in their own right. I think sometimes it shows up in the way that it has to when it's time. Um, I do think that you said it had to be me. And I do think sometimes it has to be that person. I think that's a real quality in a leader, to be like, this, I have to do this. It can't be anybody else. It has to be me. This is my thing. This is my journey. And I think even noticing that and doing the hard thing is amazing. I mean, to me, it speaks to, I don't know you well. I mean, I'd like to think I've known who you are based on what we've all watched. And I keep going back to that idea of being a badass, which now I think I've said 3 times in this. We've found the name of this episode, I think. But I think there's something that, you find your calling. It's not something you wanted to do. You certainly could have kept your mouth shut and not done anything about it. But in the end, by doing the hard thing, it worked out better for you and for so many people around you. And I think that's what leadership is. That's just doing what you know you need to do. Sometimes thinking it's a sacrifice of yourself, but really in the end, it tees up so many people around you. And I kind of wonder now that I'm thinking about this, because to me, you seemed like, of course, you'd be the type of person that speaks up. You're so accomplished. You're so strong. Were you always like this? Like, what was young? Like, you were born in Calgary, Alberta. Young Kaillie, was she like this? Was she strong and vocal and powerful and all these things?
I don't think so. I think there's some part of that. Yes. Have I always been strong? Yes. Strong-willed, physically, 100%. I have my opinions. I believe in what I believe in, but it doesn't make me ignorant to the fact that there are others,
Right.
and my mind can change. And even I've learned that within sport with coaches. If you've got a better way for me to do something, I am all ears. If you can make me a better person, more, and we have that trust and respect, I am all ears. But I do know what I know. And once I know it really well. And I do believe in that. And I think that's always been a part of who I am, even from when I was young. I have my opinions on things, and they're
It
very
does not
strong
surprise
opinions.
me. I could just
Yeah.
picture you at a young age just being like, "Nope, I don't agree with that." I
Nope,
think
don't
I
agree with
think
that.
that's
Or
amazing.
that doesn't make
Yes.
sense. Yeah.
If you weren't gonna be an Olympic athlete, what did you wanna be when you were a kid? Like, what did you wanna grow up and do?
I always wanted to grow up and be a psychologist.
Ooh,
Something about the mind and how
yeah.
things work has always fascinated me. I love like those like criminal mind shows too, or
Mhm.
like any of those,
Yes.
anything based on true stories as well, like people and their stories and what they go through and how they go through it, and all of those fascinate me. I absolutely love biographies, things like that. So a psychologist was always one, if that ever came to be, which it hasn't. Don't know if it will, but
I mean, there's still lots of time. Who knows?
there's still tons of time. Who knows?
Who knows?
Outside of that, though, I did always firmly, from when I was very young, believe that I wanted to be an Olympic athlete. That was always something I
Hmm.
was very passionate about. Athletics in general has always been a place where I felt comfortable, where I felt I could be myself. I could go to the gym. I could, just crush my body, but my mind had always pushed me. It challenged me. It provided opportunities. So sport has always been my safe space where I felt comfortable to express myself.
Yeah.
I think the strength that I've found has actually come from my team. So, and when I say my team, I I don't mean like a big global this or that. it's always been people that have believed in myself. So my strength and conditioning coach, Stu McMillan, Gordon Bosworth, there have been so many people that have come and gone, but there's been probably a key five that have stuck with me my entire or majority of my career. My parents have always been very, very
Mm,
supportive. My family, my husband now basically gave up his career to travel with me the last 2 years on tour, and will look to with our new baby. And so
amazing.
the people that have supported and believed in me have done so in such a way that I get to be strong because of them. So I'm not worried about who says what, some troll on Twitter. I'm not worried so much. It hurts, but still, I'm not worried so much, about the decisions that I make, because I'm not ever making them alone. It's always in cooperation with, what do you guys feel? How do you think? Even when I left Team Canada, it was a family conversation. My sisters, you guys, my parents, you still live there. You still live in Longview, Alberta. You guys are going to see and hear this kind of stuff. Is this okay for you? Knowing that I still had the option to retire and walk away and stay silent if that's what everyone else wanted. And so it's always been team effort. And
Mm.
there's like a core five people within my life that have always been there, supported, and guided me, and they give me the strength. So I don't think I've always had it. I think they definitely provide it.
And I love that because I'm such a big believer in the village, right? And everyone's village looks different, but you need a village. I say all the time, and people are going to get so sick of hearing it, but there's no trophy for going it alone. I mean, even though you're in a sport that's fairly individual, you would not have gotten to where you are, and you just named off a bunch of people, and I'm sure there's dozens more behind the scenes to get you to that point that, yeah, you're up there doing the thing, but there's people that are helping tee you up to help you do the thing, to allow you, to give you space and support, and make sure that you can perform at your highest mentally, physically. And I always encourage people, be careful, have a village, be careful who your village is. I mean, I think that's also really important. Be selective about your village. Make sure there's people who will tell you things you don't always want to hear, but that you need to hear. People who cheer you on to your face and behind your back. Everyone needs a village. You don't have to go through this life. There's no prize for achieving something all by yourself with no help. It's a lesson I teach to my kids, right? Ask for help. You don't have to bang your head into a brick wall trying to figure this out, right? You don't have to. You're still a big girl, and I'm still going to be proud of you if you ask for help. But I think it's a big deal. We've talked, actually, side note, because you talked about how you love sports. I read on the internet, and since I choose to believe everything I read on the internet, I'm going to assume it's true, that you also competed for Canada in the rugby world championships.
So no, that's not correct. That is my teammate Heather Moyes, who I won gold with
Oh,
in 2010 and 2014.
okay.
She competed in both.
She
So
competed.
she did
Okay.
both. So she
Because
did
I thought,
bobsled. Yeah, her and I won gold together, 10 and 14,
oh
and
my
then she
gosh.
also was part of the Rugby World Cup and on the national rugby team. But that's Heather Moyes.
Okay. Well, that makes way more sense because I was like, where does this woman have time to
Yeah.
do the rugby? But I do have a question. You competed with two former hurdlers, Olympic hurdlers,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Felicia George and
Priscilla
thank you.
Lopes.
Is there something specifically about Olympic hurdlers that make them great bobsled? Like, is this just something you figured out where you're like, I think you would be great with those long gazelle-like legs coming to help me? How did that work out that way?
So within our sport, we're constantly looking for, an edge. I think that's every sport.
Right.
And so bobsled is
Sure.
no different. And the start being something that's extremely important to winning races. You need the start, you need the equipment, you need to be able to drive. And so the start being one of the three key things. We're constantly looking for athletes. And so specifically with Felicia, when she retired from track and field, it was one of those like, hey, what do you think about this? And you just
Hey, what are you
finished
doing in
the
your
Summer
spare
Olympics.
time?
Yeah, in a year and a half is a winter. I think you could be really good. I think with hurdlers specifically, there's a power output, so they know speed. They have
Mm,
speed, but in order for their step to get over the hurdle, there is a power element to it.
yeah.
Bobsleds are not light. They weigh anywhere from 330 to
Oh my
500 pounds.
gosh.
So they're heavy, but you have to move it very quickly. So you can't just be fast and you can't just be strong. You need to be very powerful and very dynamic. And hurdlers, Lolo Jones being another example, who's also gone to the
Yeah.
Olympics, summer and winter. you need the combination of the power and the dynamic ability. And so for me, when I looked at Felicia, I was like, you have long legs, but you're fast and you look very dynamic and like springy, and I think you could be good. Do you want to come give it a try? And she was like, maybe. So she showed up, she came out, she tried it. Turns out she's a phenom and the most
Amazing.
amazing person that I know. Like she's oh, I just love Felicia. But
Yes, she loves you too.
yeah, it was brilliant. And so, yeah, for her and I, it was a very, very quick turnaround. She came out, we
That's
had
amazing.
literally like 6 months before the games, a testament to her and how hard she's willing to work. She didn't have the bobsled knowledge, but didn't need it. I take care of the equipment. I was taking care of the drive. I needed a teammate that was going to be able to like do everything she could at the
Right.
start. And she gave me 110% of herself for that 6 or 7 months. She trusted the process. She trusted our coach, Sue McMillan, to like get her in the best bobsled shape. She had to gain,
Yes.
a good 20, 30 pounds, which is not, sounds easier, but a productive
I'd be
work
like, check, please. Yeah.
Olympic level 30 pounds is very different than,
Unbelievable.
yeah, than not. And so she
Yeah.
put the work in and
It's unbelievable. And you guys won a bronze medal, which was amazing. And what a great kind of highlight to wrap up her career as well. Like, what a great kind of twist and chapter, to kind of change her story. And I'll, Easter egg for the listeners, I will be speaking to Felicia as well. There's an episode coming with Felicia. And yeah, I'll let her share her story. But I've had many conversations with her about that. And I just think it's amazing. So I want to talk about, we went back in time, talked about little Kaillie. I want to talk about you today. You're expecting, we said any day now. Do you know what you're having? You don't have to tell the whole world, but do you know?
no, my husband and I didn't know. So this was a 2 year process. We went through IVF. So
Yes.
I've got stage 4 endometriosis, which for people that may
Okay.
or may not know, it's where the lining of your uterus, so when you get your period every month, grows outside of
Yes.
your uterus. So it can grow anywhere within my body. It can be in my lungs, on my lungs. It, for me specifically, it was inside my fallopian tubes. So it caused infertility. It was on my
Okay.
kidneys and other areas within my body that they can't surgically fully remove either. So every month it will randomly grow in certain parts and then it turns into scar tissue because I can't shed it or get rid of it because it's not just inside
Right.
the uterus. So I end up with a bunch of internal scar tissue. It makes my monthly visit extremely painful, but it also
Mm,
it blocks things up and it makes them challenging. And infertility was one of those things. So we didn't find it until I was about 35. My husband and I then, knowing IVF was the route we had to go, we started that process right after the 2022 Olympics. We did 2 rounds of egg retrievals. It's been 2 years of a process. We had 4 failed cycles, 3 failed implants, and finally we were successful in our 4th implantation. For him and I, it was, I always thought I was going to be the person. I was like, I need to know. I need to know for the name and the gender and to buy the clothes and do all this stuff. But that's when I also was young and naive in the fertility journey, thinking,
right.
y'all grow up, wear protection, do what you got to do. It's super easy to get pregnant. And for some people it is, but for me, it was not.
Yeah.
It was not that way.
Nope.
And maybe because I'm older, 37, maybe, but I look back on things and I go, okay, I wish I would have, frozen my eggs earlier, or I wish I would have,
Right.
known that these challenges can exist, these reproductive issues, and it's not as simple. Some people have to do surrogacy, IVF, IUI. Like there's so many different aspects, adoption, because you don't know where you're at and what life will give you when you do want to have kids. And so um, it's been, yeah, a 2 year, very hard process, but very happy to be almost 38 weeks now. So belly's like
Unbelievable.
getting bigger
Oh my goodness. Look at that
and the belly
belly.
button is like pushing out and I'm just
Oh my goodness.
giant, but
Yeah.
we're so
That's
excited
awesome.
and we
Yes.
wanted it to be less medical. So when it came to the gender, we don't care. Boy, girl,
Yeah.
we're just
Oh
happy to
gosh.
live out the dream of
Yeah.
being parents and having a baby. And so when they were like, do you want to know? Both my husband and I were like, actually, we don't. Like, I want a surprise. I want something natural that's a little less medical of a procedure and process. And for us, it's actually been really, really nice to not know and just be
Yeah.
happy and excited that we have a healthy baby. And
It's amazing. It's so funny because there's just so few things in life that you have so little control over, like the gender of your baby. Or, I mean, eventually you're going to find out. It's just a matter of when. And sure, you would have been surprised if you found out months ago, or you'd be surprised now. So, we don't generally delay gratification very much these days as humans. We need it. And I'll be honest with you, I found out the second I could find out with both my kids. And in the spirit of truth, transparency, I was like, I must know. But then I look at people who didn't find out, and everything worked out just the way it was supposed to. So I'm really happy for you.
thank you. We had embryos from both genders, so we could have chosen
Yes.
that route too.
Oh
But for
yeah.
us, it
Yeah.
was implant the best, whatever. As the doctor, we trust you as the doctor, put whatever one in.
Yep.
And when the first one failed, the second one failed, the third one failed, you get to the point where you're like, okay, just again, you're just going
Wondering.
through your list, and you
Mhm.
stop looking or knowing. um there were a couple of times we had to force ourselves to not look at the list and be like, okay, but we could have done the math and figured out, okay, they
Yes.
implemented this one here and this one here, it means this one, and like which ones did you?
Yep.
But for us, it was just an overwhelming process, that again, giving it up to faith in the process. And it's not up to us. We're doing the work, we're doing the shots, we'll
Yeah.
implant, but whether it takes or not, I was doing acupuncture and all these things,
Oh my
is not always
goodness.
up to
Yeah.
us and our timing 100%. So we just trusted in the process.
Amazing.
And so it's been good, but we're very excited.
And such a probably different departure from how you're used to functioning, I'm sure. Very regimented, very specific about what happens to your body and what goes in your body and how you move your body. And now it's just like, well, I'm just going to throw this up to fate and see what happens. I know you and I talked about exercising and working out, and you're like, I'm just happy if I walk around.
At this point, yeah, that's
Yeah.
walking around doing a little bit of general strength or some mobility, just like
Yeah.
moving and some stretching, 100%. But talking about delayed gratification, I feel like the IVF process has been very similar to like the Olympic journey. There are so many things that, again, I don't know where I'm going to be in 4 years, and if I'm going to get the
Right.
opportunity to be at a games. Hopefully the young up and coming guys take it, but you never know. And even when I was young and up and coming, can I ever be that person? And then you get there. So you're working in these 4, 8, 12-year times of very much delayed gratification if it works, or delayed
Mhm.
heartbreak if it doesn't. And so the IVF process, though, there's a lot where you don't know if it's going to work, if it's not going
Yep.
to work. You have to put the work in. I got to train every day. I got to do my shots. I got to do all of this stuff to build and build and build, to put myself in the best possible situation for one day, implantation day of the Olympics. And it may or may not turn out the way I want it to. Um, and sometimes it doesn't, and sometimes it does. And so, but that like blind faith of working and building and achieving and sacrificing and dedicating all the way up to your one day I was like, wait, this kind of feels the same. Like I know it's different.
This seems familiar somehow. Yeah.
I'm like, it's not like killing myself in the gym every day. It's killing myself doing
It's
all these
different.
shots and like all
Yeah.
this regimen and stuff. But I'm like, wait, there's something similar about this building, 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 and like dropping, doing everything you can with this blind faith of like, will it, won't it work? You've got one chance. Just normally I get to games and then I perform in this way. The doctor has to perform with implantation day.
Yes.
But again, will my body
Yeah.
reciprocate? Will
Do
it
what I've prepared it to do.
supposed to do? Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's amazing because I think even in life we go through these moments where we want, okay, I put in the work, why isn't my business thriving? Or I've put in the work, why haven't I achieved X? Or and it's testing our patience is a quality that we need to sharpen in life to get the things we want. And I suspect your mindset, you already talked about working with a sports therapist, sports psychologist. Working on our mind is just as powerful as working on any other aspect of our business or our bodies, or to kind of align everything for that moment. So I suspect all the work you've done as an Olympian has prepared you and gotten to you to this very moment, and I suspect it'll just go amazing.
Yeah, it tested every skill I learned in the Olympic world. 2 years of IVF max. Like, give me 20 years of sport in an Olympic final, any day.
And you're no stranger to challenges and heartbreak. Obviously, we've talked about the struggles and things that you've been through. So to say that, I mean, all the men and women going through that out there, it's a huge shout out to them dealing with this IVF journey. And for those of us who haven't, to give those people in our lives the space and grace and love and support to not know what it's like, but to appreciate it's a journey. So I'm just so happy for you.
And parenthood
Yeah.
is for everybody.
No, exactly.
Yeah. Different. Getting there is
Yes.
different. Being parents is different. Real life is. So we all deserve grace in that process as a whole, because it's
Yeah.
definitely challenging
Yes.
for everybody.
And we always laugh. I have girlfriends who have been through IVF journey, have gone through adoption, have gone through surrogacy, and you always laugh because you're like, you just want these babies so badly. And then all of a sudden one day you're like, oh, these kids drive me nuts. Like, why did I do that? She goes, eventually the switch flips. She goes, it's just for a moment in time, but it's so fun and it's so normal, but that's life.
It happens in sport too. Why am I doing this? Like, what? No, this is not like what? But you won't quit. You don't stop. You can't give up. Like, none
Love
of
the
those
love.
things. You never
No,
choose those. It's just,
you do.
but you have these moments. You're like, this is
Yeah.
not smart, or like, why
Yeah.
did I fight so hard for this? And then you remember and you get back into it and you're good. I think
Which
that's,
is, it's
yeah,
so timely
nature
because
too.
I read something you said about, and I'm going to read it here. Uncertainty will not stop me from doing everything I can do to make it happen. And I think in life, in business, in baby making, in whatever it takes, you can't control everything, but it certainly shouldn't stop you because you don't know how it's going to work out. You should just do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
I'm not, yeah, I'm not going to let you go without doing my rapid fire questions with you.
That's good.
Okay. Finish this sentence. The key to success is.
The key to success is teamwork.
Love that. Do you have any weird superstitions or good luck charms or weird habits? I mean, obviously they're not weird because they've clearly worked for you, but anything?
No. And here's why. Because when I was a young athlete, Marnie McBean actually, but she's also an
Yes.
incredible female
Yes.
athlete I have modeled after, and she has been so amazing and really helped me within my career be the best that I could be. But she's always been there. And right from go, she had told me this story of how, like, and again, there's tons of stories she tells and she's so good at it. If you don't have her on your podcast, you need to. But
All right.
Marnie has been so influential. But right from go, I didn't want to rely on a superstition, because she goes, that's not, if you're relying on your left sock being on your right foot, or this pink pair versus this blue pair, or you're relying on headphones, when you've put in all of this work, you've dedicated, you've sacrificed years of your life, your entire life's work. What if your sock gets a hole? What if something
Right.
happens? What if you don't have that one thing and your mind is wrapped up in that being the thing? It doesn't. That's not the thing. The one song you play, the one playlist, could it help? Great. But that's not what makes you great. That's not what makes you successful. So for me, I always challenge myself to never have the same, and not on purpose, but I don't think about having any type of ritual or anything specific, a teddy bear, a stuffed animal, a certain playlist. I very much have put the work in to be the best that I can be, and I rely heavily on that. So when the day comes, if it starts raining versus sunny, if this happens, if this has to go here, I can adapt and I can still be the best at what I do in my best version without relying on something superstitious. Now, if people have superstitions, I'm all about it. Great. Do what you need to do to feel good. But for me, it made the most sense to try and break that cycle when I was a young athlete, to not rely on something and to rely on myself, and my ability and the work I put in. And when she said that and told me those stories, I was like, that makes sense to me. Sounds good. Like,
Yes.
I want to be like you, but also you're amazing and badass. However, I'm going to be me too. And for me, it was not having this. So there isn't any that I.
Well, I feel like that's great advice. I mean, just trusting that you've put in the work and showing up as yourself, having done the work, I think is good advice for everybody. And I also think parents everywhere are going to replay this portion of the podcast to remind their young sons growing hockey hair everywhere to say, it's time for a haircut, or the playoff beards, or, choose your poison.
Yeah. Like, is it going to help you shoot the game winning goal because you grew your hair out? No.
Yeah. They can't even see with that hair in their face. I don't even understand it.
No, the work you
Ugh.
put in will help you
Yes,
make the game time decision. The work you
absolutely.
put in and how hard you are,
Absolutely.
and the hours at the rink, and the stretching, and the training, the nutrition you have, how you sleep, all of those things will very much impact
Hmm.
your performance. But your hair,
But
come on, no chance.
it looks so good in a baseball cap, which has nothing to do with hockey, by the way. So I
Then
hear.
just say you want long hair. You want the hair because you think it looks good, and that's your style all day
Yeah,
long. Great, go for it. And again, if that's what gives you that edge and that 1%, sometimes that's all it takes to do it.
for
Grow it.
sure.
There is
Just
nothing
do it.
wrong with
Just do
that.
it.
Just do it. Like be all you can be. And if that's with the
Yeah.
hair, grow the hair.
Knock yourself
Sounds
out.
great. Just also know that you're not only hair. You're also
Yes.
all these other things.
Fair. But for the record, you have great hair. And I just assumed it was a aerodynamic strategy, but now I know that it's not. It's just to look badass.
Just a look that I liked that I've stuck with that now trying to grow out looks worse, so I just keep it going.
Right. The in-between stage.
Yeah, it's
Oh, that's
not
fair.
the
That's
easiest
fair.
to grow out with, so it'll be a
That's
step
fair. That's fair.
process.
Finish this sentence. Great leaders dot dot dot.
Lead by example to me, and that's always something I've valued in people that I've looked up to in leadership positions is that they don't talk the talk, they walk the walk.
Mm-hmm.
For me, leadership is about making those hard decisions. It's about doing what's right. It's about elevating others. But all of those things require action. And so when you're able to show people through your work ethic, um, through your sacrifice, through your dedication, when you're able to model what you want other people to do and your actions speak louder than words, um, when that happens, then I think that's what great leaders are, is they lead by example.
Love it. Last question. If you could go back and give your teenage self some words of wisdom or some advice, what would you tell yourself?
I would say I would tell myself to not doubt myself.
Mm.
I think there were a lot of times when I was a teenager when I believed in my ability, I believed in my future, but I had a lot of doubt. I didn't know, I didn't fit in. I was not the most popular kid. I definitely tried really hard to be liked and have friends and fit in and, be Miss Congeniality, but that wasn't me. And I doubted myself and my abilities far more than I ever should have. And I think that's part of not knowing what the future holds. And I don't think that that's a foreign concept to a lot of people either, even as we get older, but especially when we're teenagers, we doubt who we are and what we believe in, and are we cool or not cool, and do these people like me, or
Totally.
should I go here, and all those things. And looking back now, it was a waste of time. it I, I am happy with how I turned out, with how life turned out, the good and the bad, the ups and the downs. It all has made me who I am. It hasn't always been the easiest. I've been successful, but I have failed too. And all of those are okay. And the doubting only prevented happiness throughout all of that process, I think.
Yeah.
So without just to not doubt myself, my abilities, and who I will become, um, or that, yeah, just to eliminate
So
some of
true.
that fear.
I see it now in raising my kids. I have a son who's got the confidence of a million men, and I have a daughter who's probably cares too much what other people think instead of looking internally and asking herself what she thinks. And, it's someone said, oh, he's so confident, and, should we, and you think, well, should I make him less confident? Is it ego? And you're like, no, the world's going to beat confidence out of everybody at some point. So you should try to build up your kids as much as you can, fuel their confidence, fuel their resilience. And that's probably the greatest gift you can give them, sending them out into the world. So, well, it has been a pleasure. Thank you for making time for me. Thank you to little baby for not being born before today so that we had this opportunity. You are an absolute beacon of hope. And I know that this voice, this role that you've played in being this voice for so many people is not necessarily something you chose, but it's clearly something that you've embraced. And, I'm sure all the people that you're speaking on behalf of who haven't found their voice or who need you to speak for them are so grateful that you have. And it's a testament to there's life after hard times and hard choices and hard conversations. And I'm so thrilled for you. You are remarkable. You are brave. You are badass. And I strongly suspect we'll see you on the podium again one day soon. As a list off all your accolades, mom. So I look forward to that moment. And I'm so grateful that you took this time. Thank you for chatting with me today.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Of course. We'll talk to you soon. All the best.
Thank you.
Bye.